Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us your reading, and, well, we're here to pull out the key insights for you.
That's right.
Today, think of us as your guides, maybe your instructors. We're walking you through some important bits of ISO 31000.2018.
Specifically Clause 5, the framework.
Exactly. This is really about building the foundation, the structure for how any organization tackles uncertainty and tries to hit its goals.
It's the roadmap, really.
Huh.
Okay, shall we dive in?
Let's do it. Clause 5. It all starts with Section 5.1, just called General. Seems simple, but maybe not.
Well, it sets the whole scene. The main point here is that the framework isn't meant to be some separate thing off to the side.
Good.
Its job is to weave risk management into everything important the organization does. Activities, functions, you name it.
So integration is key right from the start.
Absolutely. For risk management to actually work, it has to be part of how the organization is governed, how decisions get made.
And that needs backing, right, from the top.
Definitely. Support from stakeholders, especially top management, is, well, it's critical. Without it, integration just won't happen effectively.
Makes sense. And the standard mentions this isn't a one-shot deal, it's a process.
Precisely. Developing the framework involves integration, design, implementation, evaluation, and then improvement. It's a cycle.
Like building something and then constantly checking and tweaking it.
Exactly. The standard points to a figure 3, which obviously you can't see right now, but it shows these pieces fitting together. Leadership, integration, design, implementation, evaluation, improvement, all connected.
So the visual reinforces that cyclical idea.
It does. And it emphasizes that organizations need to look at what they're already doing for risk, find the gaps, and then use this framework structure to fix them.
So building on strengths, patching weaknesses.
You got it. And a really important point in 5.1 is customization. This isn't a one-size-fits-all template.
Oh, yeah.
The way these components work together, how they're set up, it all needs to be tailored, fitted to the specific organization's needs and context.
Right, like a custom suit, not something off the rack. Good analogy.
Yeah. Okay, moving on then to 5.2.
Let's. Leadership and commitment. We touched on leadership being important, but this section really gets into the specifics.
It does. It's about how top management and any oversight bodies show they're serious about this.
So what actions should we be looking for?
Well, 5.2 lists quite a few. Things like actively customizing, putting all the framework parts into place.
Okay.
Issuing some kind of formal statement, could be a policy, a plan, an approach that clearly outlines their commitment to risk management.
So making it official.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, crucially, putting their money where their mouth is, allocating the necessary resources.
People, tools, budget.
All of it. And then clearly assigning who has the authority, the responsibility, the accountability for risk management throughout the organization at all the right levels.
Defining roles clearly.
Exactly. It's about leadership actively designing the system. So risk thinking is just part of the decision-making fabric.
So they need to walk the walk. And if they do that, what are the upsides for the organization?
Oh, huge benefits. When you have that strong leadership commitment, it makes sure risk management lines up with the big picture, the organization's goals, strategy, even its culture.
Alignment. That seems critical.
It is. It also helps the organization get a handle on its obligations, both the must-dos and the voluntary ones.
Right.
Plus, leadership is key in setting the tone for risk appetite, deciding what levels of risk are acceptable. That then guides how you define specific risk criteria.
Okay, setting boundaries.
Yes. And they champion the value of risk management, promote regular monitoring, and ensure the whole framework stays relevant as things change.
So it's an ongoing leadership role. Now, the standard mentions a difference between top management and oversight bodies. What's that distinction?
That's a good point to clarify. Generally, top management is accountable for managing risk. They're the ones making the calls, taking action on specific risks.
The day-to-day operational side.
Sort of, yes. Whereas oversight bodies think boards of directors, audit committees, that kind of thing, they're responsible for overseeing risk management.
Watching the watchers, in a way.
Kind of. Their job is more about making sure the system is in place, that it's working right, and that the risks being taken line up with the organization's goals. It's a governance layer.
Got it. Management does oversight, ensures it's done properly. What are the typical things these oversight bodies are expected to do?
The standard lays out some common expectations. They need to make sure risk is seriously considered when setting strategy and objectives.
Okay.
They need to understand the big risks the organization faces trying to meet those objectives. They check that effective risk management systems are actually up and running.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be comfortable that the amount of risk being taken is appropriate for the goals.
Mm.
And, importantly, that information about risk is flowing correctly and clearly.
So, ensuring transparency and suitability. Okay, that makes the roles clearer. Shall we move to 5.3, integration?
Yes. We mentioned integration earlier as the main goal of the framework, but this section digs into the how.
Right. How do you actually make it happen?
Well, the core idea is that risk management shouldn't be siloed. It needs to be woven into the fabric of the organization. Daily operations, decision-making, everything.
Not just a department down the hall.
Exactly not. And to do that, you really have to understand your organization's structure and its context.
Which can vary a lot, right?
Hugely,
Yeah.
depending on purpose, goals, complexity. But the principle holds. Risk is managed everywhere in the structure. Everyone has a part to play.
A shared responsibility, then.
Definitely. Think of it like this. Governance sets the direction and rules. Management translates that into strategy and objectives to keep things running sustainably.
Okay.
And a key part of that governance is defining who's accountable for managing risk and who's overseeing it.
So accountability is baked into the structure.
It should be. And this integration, it's not static. The standard calls it a dynamic and iterative process.
Meaning it changes?
It has to. As the organization evolves, as the world outside changes, the way risk management is integrated needs to adapt to.
So it stays relevant.
Precisely. The end goal is for risk management to be just part of the organization's DNA purpose, governance, leadership, strategy, objectives, operations, not an add-on.
Got it. Okay, that lays the groundwork well. Now we hit 5.4, design. This sounds like where we get into the actual blueprint of the framework.
Exactly. This is where you build the specifics. And it starts, quite logically, with 5.4.1, understanding the organization and its context.
The foundation for any good design, really.
Couldn't agree more. You simply can't design an effective framework without deeply understanding both the world outside the organization and what's going on inside.
Makes sense. So what kind of external stuff do we need to look at?
Oh, it's broad. 5.4.1 mentions things like the social, cultural, political, legal, regulatory environments, financial, technological, economic factors too, environmental ones, from global right down to local.
Wow, okay.
Also, key trends, drivers affecting the industry, relationships with external stakeholders, suppliers, customers, regulators, contractual stuff, how complex your networks are.
So a real 360 view of the outside world.
Absolutely. You need to know the landscape you're operating in to design a framework that actually fits your reality.
Okay, that's the external. What about the internal context? What do we examine inside?
Looking inward means understanding the fundamentals, the organization's vision, mission, values, its governance setup, the org chart, who reports to whom, roles, accountabilities.
The basic structure and purpose.
Right. Plus strategy, objectives, policies, the actual culture, how things really get done, any standards or models you follow, and then capabilities. What resources do you have? People, knowledge, money, tech, data systems, information flows. How do internal stakeholders relate? Any internal contracts or dependencies between departments?
It's a really thorough internal checkup, too.
It has to be. You need that deep understanding inside and out.
Okay, once you have that understanding, the next design step in 5.4.2 is articulating risk management commitment. How's that done effectively?
This is where leadership, top management, and oversight bodies formally state their dedication, usually through a documented policy or an official statement.
Putting it in writing.
Exactly. And 5.4.2 lists what should be in that statement. Things like why the organization is managing risk, how it connects to goals, reinforcing that it needs to be part of the culture, part of core activities and decisions.
Okay.
It should also clarify authorities, responsibilities, accountabilities, promise the needed resources, explain how conflicting objectives might be handled.
Practical stuff.
Yes, and how performance will be measured and reported, ideally linked to existing metrics. And importantly, a commitment to review and improve the whole thing over time.
So it's a comprehensive statement of intent and action. And it shouldn't just sit on a shelf, right? Communication is key.
Absolutely. 5.4.2 makes that clear. Communicated internally, communicated externally to stakeholders where needed. Everyone needs to know leadership is serious and what their role is.
Builds that risk-aware culture we talked about.
Precisely.
Okay, after articulating commitment, we get to 5.4.3, assigning organizational roles, authorities, responsibilities, and accountabilities. Sounds like the nuts and bolts of who does what.
That's exactly it.
Really?
Leadership needs to make sure these are all clearly defined, written down, and communicated. everywhere in the organization.
Not just assumed.
Definitely not assumed. And the standard stresses again. Managing risk isn't just for the risk department. It's a core responsibility for many roles.
Right.
It also says it's important to identify specific people accountable for managing specific risks, the risk owners. They need the authority to act.
So clear ownership for specific risks makes sense, which leads nicely into 5.4.4, allocating resources. What kinds of resources are we talking about here?
It's more than just money, though it's important. 5.4.4 gives examples like having the right people, skills, experience, competence.
Human capital.
Yes. Also, the right processes, methods, tools for doing risk management, documented procedures, good information and knowledge system.
The infrastructure.
Right. And resources for training and development so people keep their skills sharp. The key is ensuring adequate resources are provided, considering what you already have and its limitations.
A holistic view of resources. Okay, the last piece of the design puzzle is 5.4.5, establishing communication and consultation. How is this different from the commitment communication we already discussed?
Good question. Communicating the commitment is the high-level message from leadership. This section, 5.4.5, is about setting up the ongoing processes for sharing information and, crucially, seeking input about risk management.
So it's about the day-to-day flow of information and feedback.
Exactly. This standard distinguishes communication, basically, telling people things from consultation, actively asking for feedback to help shape decisions.
Two-way street.
Yes. And the methods you use, the information you share, it should all be tailored to what different stakeholders expect and need.
Why is that two-way interaction so vital?
Because timely communication ensures the right risk information gets collected, synthesized, and shared efficiently. Consultation brings in diverse perspectives, gets feedback.
Leads to better decisions.
Absolutely. Better assessments, better treatment plans. It makes the whole process more collaborative and robust. It ensures the framework is actually used effectively.
Okay, wow. The design phase is pretty detailed. Now, assuming we've designed this well, we get to 5.5, implementation, putting the plan into action.
Exactly. Taking the blueprint and making it real. 5.5 outlines key steps here, like developing an actual implementation plan, who does what, by when, with what resources.
Project management basics?
Sort of, yes. Identifying where key decisions are made in the organization and who makes them. You might need to actually modify those decision-making processes to build in risk thinking explicitly.
Changing how things are done.
Sometimes, yes. And making sure everyone understands the new arrangements, the policies, processes, roles, and actually uses them day to day.
So training and embedding the practices. What's the secret sauce for successful implementation?
Engagement and awareness. If stakeholders get it, if they feel involved, they're much more likely to support it and actually do it.
Makes sense. Buy-in is crucial.
Absolutely. A good implementation means risk isn't an afterthought. It's considered upfront in decisions. And it helps the organization adapt when new uncertainties pop up. The process becomes part of everything.
Integrated, like we said at the start.
Back to that key theme, yes.
Okay, so the framework is designed and implemented. It's running. How do we know if it's actually working? That brings us to 5.6, evaluation.
Right, evaluation is the checkup. It's about periodically measuring how the framework is performing against what you intended it to do.
Measuring against the goals.
Exactly. Against its purpose, the plans, the indicators you set up, the behaviors you expected. The big question is this framework still suitable? Is it helping us achieve our objectives?
So it's not just, did we build it, but is it doing its job?
Precisely. It ensures the framework remains fit for purpose.
And if the evaluation finds problems, or just areas to tweak, that leads to 5.7, improvement, which starts with 5.7.1, adapting.
Adapting is about responding to change. You constantly monitor the framework and its context, internal, external changes, and you make adjustments so it stays relevant and effective.
Keeping it aligned with reality.
Exactly. It ensures the framework keeps adding value even as things shift. It's about being responsive.
Agile, almost. And then there's 5.7.2, continually improving. How is that different from adapting?
Continual improvement is maybe a bit broader, more proactive. It's an ongoing commitment to make the whole framework better, more suitable, more adequate, more effective, and improving how well the risk process is integrated.
Always looking for ways to enhance it.
Yes. When you find gaps or opportunities through evaluation or just ongoing monitoring, you make plans to address them, assign someone to do it, and check that the improvements actually make things better.
Closing the loop.
Exactly. It's that cycle again. Learn, refine, improve.
Yeah.
Aiming for excellence in how you manage risk.
So looking at Clause 5 overall, it really gives you a complete structured yet dynamic way to build and maintain a solid risk management capability.
It really does. It's a logical flow from leadership commitment right through to ongoing improvement. It provides that essential structure for dealing with uncertainty effectively.
Well, that wraps up our instructor-led tour through Clause 5 of ISO 31000.2018. We've unpacked the general idea, leadership's role, integration, the nitty-gritty of design, implementation, and that crucial cycle of evaluation and improvement.
It's quite a journey, but each step builds on the last.
Absolutely. It really highlights how interconnected it all is for effective risk management. So thinking about everything we've covered today, here's something for you, the listener, to consider. In your own context, your own organization, where could applying one of these Clause 5 elements more deliberately make the biggest difference? And perhaps more importantly, why do you think that?
Good question to ponder.
Definitely. We encourage you to look back at your source material now, maybe with a fresh perspective on Clause 5. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.